Well, good morning, everybody. This is Sandy from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. And today, I'm fermenting. Why? Why would anybody ferment? Don't you just like your vegetables and your fruit the way they are? Well, fermentation gives you so many good probiotic, good bacteria, and it's just really healthy. And, added bonus, it tastes really good. So today we're going to do a whole bunch of different fermentations. From fruits to vegetables to even some kimchi. So the first one we're going to do is garlic. I love garlic, and we're going to use 4 to 6 garlic bulbs, a teaspoon of sea salt, a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and 2 cups of spring water. If you don't have spring water, just let your water sit on the counter for 24 hours so the chlorine goes away. And so, depending on the size of your garlic, that will determine how many you use. Now, I'm putting the sea salt in there, and I'm actually using some Celtic sea salt that I smoked, so that will give it a little bit of a smoky flavor too. And we're going to take all of the papery outside of the garlic off, and then you just throw it into the wide mouth pint jar, and we're just going to fill that up about 3/4 of the way full, because we still have to have room for the water and we have to have room for our weight, and I'll show you about that in just a minute. And when you're cutting garlic, it does get your hands a little sticky. It has a chemical in there. So when we get it about 3/4 of the way full, I like to shake it down, and then we're ready to pour our water on top of it. And this is kind of a guessing game because you put it on there. I'm going to put my apple cider vinegar in right now, the rest of the water. Now, I don't want to fill it too full, or it's too full for when I put the weight in, like that. It's too full. So let's dump a little bit of that water out, because we don't want them floating up above the weight. We want to be able to press that down in there and then put our lid on, in which will open every single day so that the pressure doesn't build up on there. Now our next one are oranges, and you're going to use 2 to 3 pounds of oranges, a 1/2 cup of salt, and about a 2-inch piece of ginger sliced, and of course a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. So I'm just using some little oranges that I had in the fridge today, and I have some salt. It's actually smoked also, and then the piece of ginger. And the ginger I will peel before I slice it, and I need 1 teaspoon of the salt in there first. And I've sliced up some ginger, and I'm going to cut the very top of the orange off, and I want to make sure that I can make it into like a flower, but I don't want to cut all the way through. So I'm just going to cut it into some sections, and it will give me a center that I can put the salt in. So I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt in each one. That little scooper is a 1/2 teaspoon. And then it gets set into the jar. And I'm going to just fill up that 1/2 gallon jar with these little oranges. And it's a great way to preserve, and it's basically pickling it. And I'll just keep adding some of the ginger as we go. Now, you don't have to put ginger in, but I kind of like that contrast. And so we have all my oranges in there, and I'm going to put my apple cider vinegar. And then I'm going to weight that down, because what I want to be able to do is pour my water in there. And once again, you want to use some kind of spring water or non-chlorinated water, and just fill it up so it's none of the oranges are above the water. That's the idea. I'm going to press that down a little bit. And if stuff starts floating, I'll show you in just a little bit how to use some saran wrap that will stop that. And on these ones, they don't really take a long time to get done. It takes about 2 weeks, and then I can refrigerate them up to a year, and the skins will turn pale colored. Now our next one is fermented apples. And we're going to use apples, a vanilla bean, cloves, some spring water, Celtic salt, apple cider vinegar, and a cinnamon stick. So here's all of our ingredients. I won't use all those apples, probably about 5 of them, because I need about 4 cups of apples. So I'm going to do the spices first. So I'm going to put those all into the bowl. And the vanilla bean I'm actually going to cut up, Now I'm going to put the apple cider vinegar in right now instead of later, because when I toss the apples, it will just coat them. So I'm going to cut that vanilla bean in half first and then slice it lengthways on both pieces so that I can scoop out all those seeds. But we're actually going to put the whole bean in there also. Now I want my apples to be just diced up. And so I'm just going to cut them. I have a little bit of vanilla beans on my fingers, I see. And we're just going to cut those up in little diced pieces, and then we're going to put them in with all of our spices. And we'll just keep mixing it as we go so they get really coated. And so here they are. They're all mixed together. And then we can put them in our half-gallon jar. And you could use a crock also, but I'm just using great big canning jars today. So I'm using a funnel so I can just dump them in, and they'll just mix one more time. Okay, so I'm going to put some saran wrap, and I'm just pushing that all in there because the little pieces of apple will try to float around my weight. And I'm going to put a link below on where you can get these weights. They're just fabulous. You get 6 in a box. They're really heavy. They're glass. They'll last a really long time, and they just work well. So then I can put my weight on top of that, and I'll just add a little bit more spring water just so it holds it down a little bit longer. And that's really all I have to do. I keep it, I don't open it, I'm not burping it like the other ones. I'm going to leave it for 24 hours. So these are my first 3 that I have done. This time, fermented radishes. Now you will probably have radishes in your garden right now. And did you know that if you don't wash the dirt off your radishes, they'll last longer? And so I have my water, my Celtic salt. It's actually smoked, so it has a little bit of that flavor. And I'm going to slice them about 1/4 to 1/8 inch thin. You could do it all the way up to 1/2 inch, but I like them thin. So it's just really a matter of preference. And so when I get them all in, I put my water, my salt water, and then I'm putting my plastic one more time, just so I can weight it down. And I just add a little bit more. Oh, I'm going to have to put that plastic in again. That just happens sometimes. And it has to be for a week, and then after that I'll refrigerate it. Joe doesn't like radishes, so this is just for me. Next one is fermented celery drink. Now, celery is really good for you, non-fattening, and so we have a whole bunch of celery. We have parsley that I dried last year, Celtic salt, I'm not going to use all that, some fennel seeds, and some black peppers. And so I'm going to cut the celery in thirds. Now, I've already washed it, but I do want to keep all the leaves. And so I'm going to put it in that 1/2 gallon canning jar and just dump it all in there. You could probably just trim it so that the stalks went straight in, but this works really good for me. And so we're putting the parsley in there, and then the peppercorns, just 1/2 teaspoon of the salt, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. And what I like to do is just pour about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. The celery won't come up around the weight, but I'm going to add a little bit of water just so it mixes those spices up a little bit before I put the weight in there. And you could do it either way. It really doesn't matter. We'll put the weight, and then we'll finish putting our water on there. Now, this is a drink that you will actually strain and then just drink the liquid. And it's really good for you, really good for your stomach. It takes about 5 days, so that's not a long time. You just want to make sure that your water is going above the very top leaves. Now, it's kimchi time, and this is going to be some hot and spicy. So we have our cabbage, our apples, our garlic, our pepper, our salt, our carrots, and our chives that we're going to do today. And I'm only going to use half of that head of cabbage, but I do want to get that center, that core out of there. So I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm just going to slice my cabbage up. I've chopped my chives up, and then I'm actually going to shred the apple and the carrots so that there's very small pieces. I chopped up the garlic. I put gloves on my hands because these peppers I grew down in Arizona, and they're very hot. And so I don't want to get that oil on my hands. And so I'm going to keep wearing my gloves even when I mix that all up. Now the idea is to really just squeeze and pound your cabbage so the juices start to come out. Now some people will leave it for a half hour, then pound it some more, leave it for a half hour. I just keep working it till it's done. And then I'm going to press that down, and it's only going to fill up that jar about halfway. And as you press it, the more juice you can see. Just wear your gloves if you're using the hot peppers, because you do not want that getting into your eyes or on your face. But as you see all that juice that's coming out, that's exactly what we want. Now I could have done this in a quart jar, but I didn't have any wide mouth quart jars. So there's the kimchi, and I put saran wrap, the weight, and then I have a bubbler. It's a fermenting, so that when the pressure comes up, I don't have to open that. It will just literally bubble all the pressure out. And this is just a great little tool to have. So here are my 6 different things I fermented today. On Fridays, I'm going to have some Friday fermenting days. Different things. I won't do it every Friday, but when I do fermenting, it will always be on Friday, so that you can look forward to that. Well, I hope this inspires you to do some fermentation, do some experimenting, do it in small jars, so if you don't like it, you don't like it. But it is really good for you. It's very tasty, healthy, preserves it a long time, and I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. There's some really good books out there, and I think you will be amazed at how it can make you feel so much more healthy. As always, like, subscribe, share with the world. I will see you next week. I am actually doing a craft fair this weekend, and so I'm going to have a lot of my fused glass. So I probably won't have a video up tomorrow. But have a great day. And remember, I have Late Night with Nana tonight at 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time.